Did you know that about $94 billion is spent on porn every single year? It's true. According to Covenant Eyes, a software company that specializes in tracking online behaviors, about $3,000 is spent on porn every single second. Doing a bit of quick math, that adds up to $94 billion every single year. This means that billions upon billions of people are viewing porn every single day, including, unfortunately, young, impressionable children. As someone who suffers from a porn addiction that I've been trying to kick for a few years now, that started when I was very young, I would love to see this change. And ultimately, it's going to come down to how parents act, how parents go about protecting their children from online threats like this. And the reason I advocate for this is because porn is highly addictive, it can cause brain damage, and it can also cause depression. In a German study, 64 young men were given MRI brain scans. Now, these 64 men, all of them were about the same age. They were of relatively good health. The difference was in how much porn they viewed every single week. On the low end, you had men who didn't view porn at all. They abstained from it. In the middle, you had people who viewed it on average maybe 4 or 5 hours every single week. On the high-end extreme, you had people viewing it almost 20 hours of porn per week. And the MRI brain scans revealed two critical factors about how their brains were different from the others. The first was that the reward system in their brains were not functioning at full capacity, which means that they had more or less rewired their own brains to desire immediate gratification over long-term gratification. So instead of being able to save money over a long period of time for, say, a house or a car, they would rather just get something immediately. And if they couldn't, they would just give up. The other was that their brains had less gray matter. And what that means is that their brains were not able to be motivated to do anything. They literally did not have brain power to be motivated. That's what porn did to their brains. And a few other studies have also confirmed that watching porn does affect your brain. For example, from the Journal of Sexual Medicine, they uncovered that watching porn on the regular could cause problems in your brain with processing visual stimuli, like seeing a very quick movement on the edge of your eyesight. Watching porn could affect your ability to see things right on the edge of your vision. Now, the big question is, why is porn so addictive? What keeps people coming back to it? Well, the answer for a lot of people is that it can replace the actual bodily function of sex. Because this comes back to the lack of gray matter that we discussed before. Because of that, people lack the motivation to go out and maybe find a girlfriend or a boyfriend that they can be physical with. No, they'd rather stick to their porn videos that they know will give them the dopamine hits. They literally cannot force themselves to do it because of the addiction. It's a vicious cycle that they caught themselves into, and unfortunately, on their own, they might not be able to get out of it because of the effects that it has on their brain. Now, some people have made the argument that because of people being addicted to porn, we have less rape cases, and the numbers don't actually support that. In fact, in some cases where porn was banned from certain places, you actually saw a sharp decrease in rapes. And for the most plausible reason that anyone can get from this is the lack of established consent in most porn. Now, when people start viewing porn at a young age, it can become a sort of their sexual educator, unfortunately. And also, unfortunately, porn directors don't often take the time to establish consent between their actors before they start filming. They just say go. And so when your sexual educator does not establish what consent is, sometimes you may not understand what it is if you started viewing porn at a young age and it became your sexual educator. So you may not have an idea of what the idea of consent even means, which leads to more rape cases. Finally, how porn causes depression. Now, most people who get depression from watching porn, they get it because they start comparing themselves to the actors, which is ridiculous, of course. These people are designed with makeup and lighting and oftentimes drugs to look as good as possible. They are not reflections of real people. They are parodies of real people. But unfortunately, like with consent, young children viewing that don't know this. So they start feeling very uncomfortable in their own skin because they think they should look like the porn stars do. And this is also present in adults. For example, men who feel inadequate because they might not feel like they have the sexual stamina of some of these porn stars, even though they're being very much boosted by certain substances in order to sell the picture. And in many cases, the women are acting as though they are in pleasure when in fact they are not, to again sell the picture. And this is also a problem for women because they see these women who are again designed from the ground up to be as attractive as possible artificially. Now, I've argued against porn because it is addictive, because it causes brain damage, and because it can cause depression in its viewers. And I argue against this because it can infect young children at a very young age, and it can affect them for the rest of their lives. And it almost did me. So I'd like to see this change. And the best way to go for parents to go about protecting their children from this kind of stuff is to avoid giving them cell phones at a young age. They do not need a supercomputer in their phone that can look up porn in half a second. They don't need that when they're in elementary school. They just don't. So I would say put off giving your children cell phones and encourage them to lead healthy lifestyles, because porn can lead to depression, but depression can also be a downward spiral into a porn addiction. And the best way to stay off depression is to live the best healthy lifestyle that you can. If a parent can do these things for their children, they can absolutely help them stave off a porn addiction that will affect them for the rest of their lives.